The new Euroleague season is here. 20 teams, one trophy, and countless storylines. From powerhouse clubs chasing another Final Four run to fresh faces entering the competition for the very first time, every squad has something to prove. In this video, we'll break down all 20 teams, their strengths, weaknesses, and what to expect from them this season. So let's dive into the ultimate Euroleague preview. When Euroleague first floated the idea of bringing Dubai into the competition a few years back, it was clear what the main motivation was: big financial backing that could give the league an extra push. But the organization wasn't about to gamble by immediately adding a club from outside Europe, especially one without a basketball tradition at this level. That's why last season served as a test run. Dubai joined the ABA League, home of Euroleague regulars Partizan and Crvena Zvezda. It turned out to be the perfect benchmark to see where Dubai stood. Even in that first season, with a roster far from elite, Dubai proved they could compete, pushing both Serbian giants and other strong regional teams. Their run ended in the semifinals against Partizan, but their debut was already considered a success. For 2025-26, Dubai clearly decided to raise the stakes. They went into the market aggressively and brought in some serious Euroleague-level talent. Names like Canan Musa from Real Madrid, Filip Petrušev from Olympiacos, Dwayne Bacon from Zenit, Justin Anderson from Barcelona, and Alexa Avramovic from CSKA completely changed the face of the team. Add to that a few more solid signings, and suddenly you're looking at a roster that's deep, versatile, and expensive. Yes, injuries slowed them down early in the season, but the message is loud and clear. Dubai is here to be competitive. Their first objective is simple: prove they belong at this level. But with the kind of names they've added, a play-in spot is a realistic goal. And one thing's certain: established Euroleague clubs can't afford to underestimate them, because this squad already has some of the top-level players in Europe.
So that's the story of Dubai. A newcomer with big ambitions, money to spend, and a roster built to prove themselves. Let's move on and see how the next team is shaping up for the new Euroleague season. Hapoel Tel Aviv is not just returning to the Euroleague. They're doing it in style. The budget is apparently over 40 million euros this season. That kind of money brings big ambitions, and the signings reflect it. Vasilije Micic, with a salary of more than 6 million euros per year, has become the highest-paid player in Euroleague history. Alongside him, Hapoel has some serious talent: Jonathan Motley, Bruno Caboclo, Ish Wainwright, Chris Jones, Elijah Bryant, Yam Madar, Dan Oturu, and, last but not least, Dimitrios Itoudis on the bench. As for predictions, this is Hapoel's Euroleague debut, so it's tough to make bold calls. But with the roster they've assembled and the ambitions they clearly have, they look capable of seizing a playoff spot. Maybe even more. And yes, just like Maccabi, they won't be playing at home in Israel. Instead, their base will be Sofia, Bulgaria. Valencia is back in the Euroleague, this time with a new arena and a fresh wave of expectations. Of course, nobody really sees them as contenders for the top positions, especially when compared to Spanish giants like Real Madrid or Barcelona. But history tells us something important. Whenever Valencia plays in the Euroleague, they tend to go beyond what people expect. They've built a reputation as a tough, competitive team, not the easiest opponent to deal with. This season looks no different. With a solid roster, a reliable core of Spanish players, and a coach who likes to push the pace, Valencia's games are almost guaranteed to be entertaining. That said, the level of competition in Euroleague is brutal, and it would be unrealistic to expect more than a fight for a play-in spot. But make no mistake, Valencia will bring energy, surprises, and some exciting basketball along the way. Virtus Bologna had a mixed story last season. In the Euroleague, they struggled during the second half of the season and ended up at the very bottom of the standings. But on the domestic stage, it was a very different picture. They finished strong, knocking out Armani Milan in the semifinals of the Italian League and then sweeping in the finals to win the championship. Still, the second part of their Euroleague run showed the limits of the roster. The team looked too old, and they simply ran out of gas against Europe's toughest competition. This summer, Virtus decided to refresh. Some veterans left the club. Marco Bellinelli officially retired, while Tornike Shengelia and Will Clyburn both moved on to Barcelona. To rebuild, Virtus brought in new faces. Luka Vildoza arrived from Olympiacos, Alan Smilagic joined from Zalgiris, and Carson Edwards signed from Bayern Munich, among others. After the ownership's financial struggles and budget cuts last year, things now seem more stable. Expectations are rising again. Looking ahead, Virtus should be seen as at least a play-in contender in the Euroleague, and maybe even more than that if everything clicks. Maccabi Tel Aviv remains stuck in the same difficult situation off the court. Unable to play in their own arena, their Euroleague home will once again be in Belgrade, Serbia. Looking at the roster, this doesn't look like a return to the golden days of Maccabi's history. Several key players have left, including Rokas Jokubaitis. And while there are new arrivals like Lonnie Walker, Jeff Doughton Jr., and Uros Trifunovic, the overall talent level doesn't seem drastically improved. On the positive side, Oded Katash is still on the bench, giving the team some continuity. And they did finish last season with decent momentum. Still, with Maccabi ending 16th in the standings last year, it's hard to see them pushing into the play-in picture this season. In the end, it feels like another transitional year for Maccabi, one where expectations remain tempered until brighter days return. Last season, Asvel turned out to be a pleasant surprise. They played better than most people expected, and while they still finished far from the play-in zone, the overall impression was positive, considering their roster and financial limits. There are even rumors that Asvel might soon step down from the Euroleague stage. Whether that's true or not, one thing is clear. Their budget is likely the lowest in the entire Euroleague this season, and the 2025-26 roster reflects that. Some of their most important players, the ones largely responsible for last year's overachievement, have left. Teo Maledon joined Real Madrid. Neil Sacco moved to Valencia after a strong year. Joffrey Laverne also departed, along with veterans like Charles Kahudi, Paris Lee, and Tarek Black. As for arrivals, very few new signings bring Euroleague experience. The most notable name is Thomas Hertel, making his return, but beyond him, the roster looks thin at this level. All things considered, Asvel will likely find themselves at the bottom of the standings. They finished 15th last season, and on paper, this year's squad looks even weaker. Baskonia struggled last season under Pablo Lasso. In the Euroleague, their record looked better on paper than their performances on the court, while in the Spanish league, things went even worse. They only just squeezed into the playoffs from 8th place and were immediately knocked out in the quarterfinals. After such a disappointing year, the club decided to move on from Lasso and brought in Paolo Galbiati as the new head coach. Looking at roster changes, the biggest departures were Chima Moneke, who signed with Crvena Zvezda, Nikos Rogkavopoulos, who went to Panathinaikos, Donta Hall, who joined Olympiacos, and Kamar Baldwin, who moved to Bayern. On the other side, Matteo Spagnolo arrived from Alba Berlin, along with several other new faces. Still, the newcomers don't really compensate for the quality that was lost, and overall, the roster looks weaker compared to last year. Our prediction is that Baskonia will not reach the play-in, and will likely finish near the very bottom of the Euroleague standings. This season, Žalgiris Kaunas enters with the biggest budget in its history. One of the most loyal fan bases in Europe will finally have the chance to watch a roster that, on paper, looks stronger than in recent years. The new head coach is Tomas Masiulis. After several years working alongside Sharumis Jasikovičius as an assistant in Barcelona and Fenerbahce, the 50-year-old finally gets his first chance to lead a Euroleague team as head coach. When it comes to roster changes, several important players left the club. Alan Smilagic, Bryant Dunstan, Brady Manek, and Lukas Lekovicius. On the other side, new arrivals bring plenty of optimism. Nigel Williams-Goss, Moses Wright, and Azualis Tubelis comes from Ritas Vilnius, though fans were not exactly thrilled about him arriving from their biggest rival. Also arriving is Maudo Low from Paris Basketball. Overall, the roster looks more than decent, especially the guard line. With Nigel Williams-Goss, Sylvan Francisco, and Maudo Low, Žalgiris has one of the more serious backcourts in the Euroleague. Considering that in previous years, Žalgiris often managed to go beyond expectations despite budget limitations, this season they look like a strong play-in candidate and playoff contender. Partizan decided to keep the core from last season. Some players who didn't quite meet expectations left the team, while others stayed to form the backbone of the roster. Carlik Jones, Sterling Brown, Isaac Bonga, Tyreek Jones, and captain Vanja Marinkovic are all still in black and white. On the departure side, Brandon Davies is gone, Balša Koprivica also left, Frank Ntilikina is on his way to Olympiakos, and Ife Lundberg looks close to the exit as well.
When it comes to new arrivals, Partizan added serious talent. Jabari Parker from Barcelona, Dylan Osetkowski from Unicaja, Shake Milton, and most recently, Mika Morinin. The team looks solid, and with Željko Obradović on the bench, expectations are to improve from last season, when Partizan finished 12th and missed the play-in. But there's still an elephant in the room: the lack of a second center. The whole summer passed without finding a strong addition at that position. Right now, Tyreek Jones remains the only true center in the team. And in a long Euroleague season, it will be almost impossible to keep the pace with just one classic big man. Partizan is probably being patient in search of the right option, remembering the failed Frank Kaminsky experiment a few years back, when they ended up as one of the weakest defensive teams in the league. If everything clicks, we expect Partizan to fight in the play-in zone, and a playoff spot wouldn't be a big surprise either.
Over the past few years, Milano's story has been pretty similar. Big budget, big expectations, but the results haven't always matched the money invested into building the roster. Will this season follow the same pattern? We'll see. On the departure side, the biggest loss is Nikola Mirotic. Freddie Gillespie and Nenad Dimitrijevic also left. But they've also been active on the market, bringing in Marko Guduric from Fenerbahce, Lorenzo Brown, center Devin Booker, Quinn Ellis, and veteran Bryant Dunstan from Žalgiris. On paper, this team looks strong once again. But with Armani Milan, it's always tricky to make predictions. Anything less than the play-in would be a disaster, and anything short of the playoffs would still count as a failure. But we know those failures have happened before. So in the end, only time will tell if this version of Milano can finally meet expectations. Crvena Zvezda decided to rebuild almost the entire roster. On the departure side, Milos Teodosic retired, while Nemanja Nedovic, Luka Mitrovic, Rokas Giedraitis, Branko Lazic, and Mike Daum also left. There was also some back and forth with Iago dos Santos. He was initially not in the plans, missed the whole preseason because of it, but eventually got invited back again. In terms of arrivals, Zvezda brought in Devonte Graham, Chima Moneke, Semi Ojeleye, Ebuka Izundu, Tyson Carter, Jordan Nwora, and Yaziel Rivero, while Donatas Motiejunas is also expected to join. Under Ioannis Sfairopoulos, last season was full of ups and downs. The team was in the Euroleague playoff zone for a while, but from spring onward, their form collapsed. They barely reached the play-in, only to be eliminated right away, and ended up missing the playoffs entirely. Things weren't better domestically. In the ABA League, they were shockingly eliminated in the semifinals against Budućnost, and in the Serbian League, they suffered an even bigger surprise, losing to Spartak in the semifinals. Despite all that, the club stuck with Sfairopoulos and opted to change players instead. But with the new roster, early results in preseason and at the start of this season remained poor. That finally forced the club to act. And now, Sasha Obradović, the former Monaco coach, is returning to lead Zvezda. Still, many of the same problems remain. The new players are not bad individually, but the roster construction looks confusing, and they don't seem to fit together as a team. With all this in mind, Zvezda doesn't look like a play-in team this season, and things don't look very promising for them right now. After last season, when Bayern played better than many expected, the team is now preparing for a fresh start. Some key players left, while several new faces arrived. Among the departures are Shabazz Napier, Carson Edwards, and Nick Weiler-Babb, just to name a few. On the arrivals side, Bayern signed Wenyan Gabriel, Leon Kratzer, Rokas Jokubaitis, although he suffered a serious injury at Eurobasket, Isaiah Mike, David McCormick, Kamar Baldwin, Stefan Jovic. From last year's core, the team still has Andreas Obst, captain Vladimir Lucic, Johannes Voigtman, and of course, Gordon Herbert continuing on the bench. It will be very interesting to see how Bayern will perform without Carson Edwards. On paper, they look like a solid play-in contender, but it wouldn't be a shock if they end up just below that line. After a brilliant season last year, where Paris brought new energy to the Euroleague with their fast-paced and entertaining style of play, and, more importantly, a lot of wins, the team now faces a fresh start with a changed roster and a new coach. Even before last season ended, key players began leaving for more established Euroleague teams. Among those departures were TJ Shorts, Maudo Lowe, Mikhail Yontanin, Colin Malcolm, and Kavarius Hayes, among others. Former head coach Tiago Splitter has joined the Portland Trailblazers coaching staff, while Francesco Tabellini has taken over after a successful run with Nymburk. Whether he can recreate Paris's dynamic play style and keep the team competitive at this level remains to be seen. Paris brought in several new, young players, hoping to repeat last season's magic, with Lamar Stevens, coming from the Memphis Grizzlies, being the most notable signing. All things considered, the logical prediction would be that Paris finishes lower than last season and misses the play-in, mainly because many of their key players have left, and the new arrivals still need to prove they can perform at the Euroleague level. But if Paris has shown anything so far, it's that they love proving people wrong.
Real Madrid mostly kept its core together, but there were several notable changes, both on the court and on the bench. Foremost, Chus Mateo left the club. Although he brought Real one EuroLeague championship title, last season was underwhelming, and the overall team atmosphere wasn't at a great level. The new coach is the one and only Sergio Scariolo, returning to the EuroLeague stage after his national team successes and years in Italy. Among player departures, Canan Musa left for Dubai, Xavier Rathan-Mays joined Bayern, while Eli Ndiaye and Hugo Gonzalez went to the NBA. Veteran Serge Ibaka also left the club. On the arrival side, Real Madrid brought in Teo Maledon, Gabriele Presida, Trey Lyles from the Sacramento Kings, Chuma Okeke from Cleveland, and David Kramer. The big question for Real Madrid will be how the new NBA arrivals will adapt to European basketball, whether Maledon can step up to expectations, and how Scariolo will integrate them with the existing core: Campazzo, Yule, Mario Hezonja, Gabriel Deck, Tavares, and others. We see Real as a playoff team this season. There might be stronger championship contenders on paper, but Real Madrid is Real Madrid, and the title is always the target in Madrid. Anadolu Efes enters the new season with some changes, both on and off the court. The club brought in a new head coach, Igor Kokoshkov, who replaced Luka Bonki. Among player departures, Darius Thompson left for Valencia. On the other side, Efes added several established names: Jordan Lloyd, Isaiah Cordinier, Georgios Papagiannis, Nick Weiler-Babb, Cole Swider from the Toronto Raptors, and Kai Jones from Dallas. The club also managed to keep its key core mostly intact, with Shane Larkin, Rodrigue Beaubois, and Erkan Osmani staying on board. The roster looks particularly strong in the guard positions, but the center position raises some questions. Papagiannis and Jones will have to prove they can anchor the paint, especially since Kai Jones arrives with a controversial background and plenty to prove.
He once claimed to be better than LeBron James. Now it's time to show how good he really is at the Euroleague level. Last season, FS finished 6th in the regular season, and this year we see them fighting for the playoffs once again.
Barcelona enters the new Euroleague season with some notable roster changes. Jabari Parker and Justin Anderson have left the team, while veteran Alex Abrines decided to retire. In their place, Barcelona brought in two proven Euroleague stars, Will Clyburn and Tourniquet Shengelia, aiming to add experience and leadership to the locker room. The team will be led by coach Joan Peñarroya, who faces the challenge of balancing a highly experienced but aging roster. Several key players are now deep in their 30s. Kevin Punter, 32, Tomasz Satoransky, 33, Nicolas Lapravidala, 35, Will Clyburn, 35, Jan Vesely, 35, and Tourniquet Shengelia, 34. That could become a problem during a long and exhausting Euroleague season, especially when it comes to maintaining energy and avoiding injuries. A scenario similar to what Virtus Bologna faced last year. We'd be ignorant to predict Barcelona outside of the play-in or playoff picture. But unlike in some previous seasons, they don't look like one of the main title contenders anymore. With this same roster 4 or 5 years ago, Barcelona would have been among the favorites. But now, with many core players past their prime, we're not certain they can keep up with younger and more dynamic teams.
Monaco had a great end-of-season run last year. The risky move of replacing longtime coach Sasha Obradovic with a young, inexperienced coach like Vasilis Spanoulis eventually paid off. Spanoulis proved that he has the potential to be just as successful in a coaching role as he was during his legendary playing career. He led the Greek national team to a bronze medal at Eurobasket 2025, their first medal in over a decade. What a year this was for Vasilis Spanoulis. Euroleague finals on his coaching debut and a Eurobasket medal on his national team debut. The question now is, how long until he reaches the next level and wins it all? Could this be the season already? Only time will tell. As for the roster, Monaco doesn't look any weaker than last year. In fact, they remain among the top 4 to 5 title favorites. Departures include Mamjaeta, Georgios Papagiannis, Petr Cornelier, Jordan Lloyd, and Donatas Motiejunas, while new arrivals are Nikola Mirotic, Kavarius Hayes, and Nemanja Nedovic. Even though 3 centers left the team, Monaco still has a strong front court with Daniel Tice, Kavarius Hayes, and Nikola Mirotic. Key players from last season stayed, and the roster remains deep, talented, and experienced at every position. We see Monaco once again as a Final Four and championship contender. There's no reason to think otherwise.
Ergin Ataman will chase another Euroleague title this season. And once again, Panathinaikos were very active on the transfer market.
The club brought in TJ Shorts from Paris Basketball, Nikos Rogovopoulos from Baskonia, and Vasilis Toliopoulos, adding more depth and energy to an already stacked roster. On paper, this team looks elite on all positions, and many see them as the main title favorites heading into the new season. Still, several key factors will determine how successful this campaign will be. First, the question is, how will TJ Shorts fit into Ataman's system? The Panathinaikos playstyle is quite different from the one Paris used last season. Shorts is a player who needs the ball, minutes, and freedom to create. But in this team, the alpha is Kendrick Nunn. There's only one basketball on the court, and balancing those roles will be crucial. While Nunn has already proven his reliability, the question is whether Shorts will be able to show his full potential within this setup. Second, Kostas Sloukas isn't getting any younger. His leadership remains invaluable. But at some point, someone will need to step into his shoes and take over the playmaking responsibilities. Third, Matthias Lesort's condition will be key. After a serious injury, it remains to be seen if he can return to the dominant form that made him one of the best centers in Europe for several seasons in a row. Even with these questions, Panathinaikos possess one of the deepest and most talented rosters in Euroleague. Continuity is there. Ambition remains the same, winning the title. We definitely see them among the top title contenders once again.
Last season's Euroleague champion enters the new season having lost several key players, but also bringing in fresh talent. Their best player and Final Four MVP, Nigel Hayes-Davis, left for the Phoenix Suns, while Marko Guduric joined Armani Milan. Eric McCollum and Dyson Pierre also departed. Among arrivals, Mikhail Yontanen came from Paris Basketball, Brandon Boston Jr. from the New Orleans Pelicans, and Talen Horton-Tucker from the Chicago Bulls. Head coach Sharunas Jasikevičius faces a challenging task to compensate for the loss of several key pieces from last season. The biggest concern seems to be the center position. The team currently lacks a dominant, traditional big man. Khem Birch will try to fill that role as much as possible, while newcomer Armando Bacot from the NBA G League remains a complete unknown at this level. Fenerbahce may look slightly weaker on paper compared to last season, but they're still the defending champions. With a deep roster, strong culture, and an elite coach, we see them firmly in the playoff mix and as Final Four contenders once again.
Olympiakos' story looks quite similar to last season. The roster core remains intact, the same key players are still here, and the goal once again is to win the Euroleague title. Moses Wright and Nigel Williams-Goss left the team, while new arrivals include Frank Ntilikina from Partizan, Donta Hall from Baskonia, and Kostas Antetokounmpo from Murcia, and former Panathinaikos player. There aren't many unknowns here. The main players are still in place, and the new arrivals are already proven Euroleague names. The roster looks deep and talented across all positions. Even the heavy injury of Mustafa Fall shouldn't shake them too much, as the trio Milutinov, Hall, Antetokounmpo at the center position looks among the strongest in Europe at the moment. Georgios Bartzokis will chase his second Euroleague title this season, and we see Olympiakos as one of the main favorites. And that wraps up our EuroLeague 2025-26 preview. We've seen big names change teams, new coaches step in, and some rosters completely rebuilt. This season looks as unpredictable as ever, a mix of proven legends, rising stars, and clubs taking bold risks. One thing's for sure, with so many changes across Europe, we're in for another wild EuroLeague ride. Who do you think will surprise everyone this year, and who's heading for disappointment? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The season is already underway, and the action's just heating up.